Call this meeting to order. Now's the time for any concerned citizen to speak to the council on an item that's not on the agenda.
Good evening, council members and guests. I'm Ethan Tobby. I'm the location manager for Landis out here at our plant. And I just wanted to come in and introduce myself and talk about some improvements that we're hoping to make here post-harvest. One of the things that we've been fielding a lot of concerns about and complaints about is the rail crossing just south of the location there. I'm sure as any of you have been across that, that's a little bit rough there. So post our harvest period here, we're hoping to take that down for a day and replace all the ties and rails going through there to hopefully make that a smoother transition through there. So want to let you all know that's on our agenda, and it's something that we're going to try to get done here before the end of the calendar year. Some of that feedback we've been hearing there. We've been doing a lot of work recently on our rail loading process and how we can improve that from a safety and efficiency perspective. And we've been working on a project together with some of the members at the location to make the process a little bit safer. And in doing so, we were kind of curious to get some feedback on you all about our ability to leave that crossing blocked during the entirety of the rail loading process, rather than right now where we have it blocked periodically while we're moving cars through that, to be able to leave that blocked that entire rail loading process of approximately 8 to 10 hours. So kind of wanted to air that out, get everybody's opinion on that. What it would allow us to do is break those cars apart less times and leave them all connected in one string, which is the most dangerous part of our rail loading process, because it requires us to put an employee between two rail cars to split them apart. And in order to put them back together, they have to lace together two air hoses. So it's really going to eliminate that line of fire hazard that they have in that particular time. So really wanted to kind of invite that idea. It'd be a process implementation that we'd be looking at probably the next time we'll load a train will likely be November, December, just because we're not going to load any during the harvest period. But wanted to get that conversation started and get some community input on that as we move forward with that process.
How many trains will you load? Do you typically load in a year?
Somewhere between 16 to 19.
Okay, 16 to 19.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Good.
Yep.
The paint job out there on the big tank really looks great too.
Yeah, we're really excited to get that one done.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it looks good.
We have several other projects to the smaller line of tanks that's right next to the fertilizer. We're hoping to get those done this fall yet, and some repairs to the tower. Since the derecho storm came through, we've had some trouble getting a roofing contractor to come in and fix the fertilizer building for a little bit here, but that one will be replaced here hopefully before the end of the calendar year too. So trying to do a lot from a facility appearance perspective and continue to improve on our impact in the community. So
my dad managed a small grain elevator, and I mean, this was a long time ago, so maybe things are safer or whatever, but he got hurt doing that very same thing.
yeah.
Not badly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's absolutely the most dangerous part of that whole task. And, the crew there has done a fantastic job. Knock on wood as much as we can with that, but they do a fantastic job from a safety perspective. But we look at our matrix of hazards, and anytime we can eliminate that risk, it's obviously the best thing that we can do for them. So we're constantly looking for new ways to improve that process, and we feel like that might be a way that we could do it.
How many hours did you say it takes to?
It'll be 8 to 10. As we get more efficient with the process, I think it would be closer to that 8, but our longer times are about 10 today.
10 hours?
Yep, 10 hours. Yep.
To load and move it?
Yep. To load, move it, and then be back out of the way.
That's all completely closed?
Yes, sir.
Do you see a problem with that, Mark, or any kind of, or did you look at it?
Mostly daytime hours, at night, is there any rhyme or reason to that?
Yeah, so it's really, we're kind of at the mercy of the railroad whenever they want to drop the cars in, but typically they're going to drop it off at the most opportune time for them, which is the most inopportune time for us. So usually nights, weekends, and holidays is usually when they bring them to us. It's just inherent in their business. If it's on our tracks, it's not their concern. So typically those are the times when we see them. So a lot more. I think this last year, all but 3 of our trains were nighttime loads. So it's very typical for us to load overnight period. Sure. Yep.
So you'd be able to alert law enforcement or whoever how much in advance of needing to block the crossing?
Oh, absolutely. We would absolutely let them know ahead of time. We usually have a pretty good idea of an ETA 12 to 24 hours before we get one, and we really get that number honed in about 3 hours before. But our baseline expectation would absolutely be a call to anybody from a law enforcement perspective or that beforehand, before we would ever close the crossing.
And I think most EMS or fire calls, they're gonna be on the overpass anyway and heading out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there was a situation, I don't know where the water pickup is, maybe for the fire department or something, where if there was, and a need to be able to transfer through there more immediately for something like that, we'd just be a phone call away that if we needed to stop loading and open that up for that process, we could.
How, does it take a lot longer when you break up the cars?
Yeah, actually. So the way that we operate today, we have to run 2 locomotives, and they kind of run in a circle around each other, and we cut off about 15 cars at a time of 110. So each time we cut off a thing, we have to hook and unhook from it 2 times. We take it apart and put it down, then we take it and put it back together and take it back out. So each one of those connections, we're putting a person in there, and they basically have to get between the cars, put together narrow line and knuckle the cars together, and that's a big pinch point. So you've got somebody on the other end of 15 cars pushing towards you, and you're trying to tell them when to stop. So it's there's a little bit of slack in those cars too, so they can move a foot or 2 without you doing too much. So I'm just trying to eliminate that risk.
You want to take it to Streets Committee and work out the details?
Yeah, no, I think we ought to talk about that. Of course, yeah, the key connect would be with our law enforcement and our emergency folks, and then, so there's a complete understanding there about as far in advance as possible, and then what would the process be if we need to tell them, gosh, you're gonna have to couple, because we gotta get water trucks through there, we got a big fire somewhere.
Yep.
And I don't know whether they would, if it's east of town, there would be a possibility that they would have to uncouple there, but
Yeah.
I would think that'd be pretty rare. And you said like 16 to 19 trains a year is what it is now.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So it's not like it's going to be every day.
Yep. Yep, very true. And typically, we're not typically loading them during harvest, so you can pretty much kind of plan that time as December through July. Basically, we did do a couple of August, but it's kind of sticks to that time frame for us more typically.
Yeah, I'd say Mark and Jack really have to get their heads together and think about that one, so that,
Certainly.
because that would be the pinch point, I think, is with our emergency people and law enforcement.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we saw as well.
So, yeah, we'll put that on the committee.
The committee meets the 3rd Tuesday of every month. I think
Okay.
That'd be a really good time.
Good, yeah.
Now we have some chance to think about it too between now and
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a window here, so I thought it was good to get it introduced so we could work through that and try to come up with a solution that worked for everyone. So.
We'll let you know, confirm that meeting so that if you're available, we'd love to have you here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions I can answer on that, on the idea or the concept or anything?
Not for me.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to consent items.
I'll make a motion we approve consent items.
Second.
Aaron Holtz,
Hi.
Jackson,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Weetrick,
Aye.
Zamalik.
Aye.
We got just a couple of changes on the new business. We're gonna jump H up in front of A there, and then we will do the priority workshop after we do reports at the end. So, right now, we're gonna consider approval to hire building and zoning official.
I told him he doesn't need to make any speech, but,
There are several of these folks in here.
well, good, now you can make a speech. So, we kind of fast-tracked this, but we had some really good candidates. We did interviews yesterday. There was a team of 4 of us. Chad Stevens came out on top. We offered him the position for $55,000 a year to be our building official. He was nice enough to come in today, and we gave him a little bit of a tour around town, showed him some of the issues. Nick was nice enough to show him some things in the office already. I hope that didn't discourage you. You're still going to say
No,
yes.
I think I'll still go ahead and accept the position. I'm not that discouraged yet, so.
Okay, good, good. So he can start October 5th, I believe you said. Okay. So good transition. So I don't know if you need to.
Anybody have any questions for me about anything? I'm originally from Scranton, graduated high school here, Jefferson Scranton. My kids that go to school here, or have, my oldest one's a freshman at UNI right now, and 4 of them between 8 and 18. I live over by, kind of by Beaver now, just east of Grand Junction a little bit. I lived in Ralston for a while. I was mayor or city council over there for probably 12 years. And I've been a contractor for the past 19 years. So that's, what led me to think I would, be a good fill for this position. Still be a lot of things for me to learn, so I'm asking for a lot of patience from Mike and the council while I kind of learn my new role here. So, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody.
So Nick's just about done, but is there going to be a chance for you, or maybe you already have, kind of to have sort of the rundown of what's going on and, just whatever the loose ends are and stuff like that?
I got here at 4 o'clock today, this afternoon, and so from 4 o'clock until now has been my rundown. So I'm going to try it maybe on Thursday, get a little bit of time to figure some things out a little more, but they will make it work the best we can with the time we have. So.
Nick left some really good notes on it.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to be available by call.
Yeah, he gave me a cell phone number, said call anytime about anything, so.
I mean, Harry and I met with him this week, and I felt intimidated and overwhelmed, and this isn't even going to be my job, so I can imagine.
I don't scare him away there.
Well, I think he's being hired as the building and zoning official. And that was similar to how Nick was hired in previous ones. There's no special projects coordinator attached to this for now. So
Sure.
that's going to be kind of the focus, is the housing and zoning and building.
I am one of the ones that knows Chad, and so I think it'd be a good choice.
We need a motion for that.
I so move to accept the hiring recommendation of Chad.
I'll second.
Jackson.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Dietrich.
Aye.
Smalling.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
You're in now.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks. I look forward to working with everybody, and I'm gonna hang out for a little bit. And it's kind of, I've been to lots of city council meetings before, but they're all a little bit different. So, thank you.
Thank you. Item A is to consider third reading of an ordinance increasing water rates by 3%.
Don't need that.
Anything either.
I move we approve this. Second.
Sloan.
Aye.
Dietrich. Smalling.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Item B is consider third reading of an ordinance increasing wastewater rates by 3%. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Dietrich.
Aye.
Smalling.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye. Item C, consider third reading of an ordinance increasing residential and commercial solid waste collection rates and providing for commercial recycling fee.
Move to approve. Second.
Smalling.
Aye.
Aaron Reynolds.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Snook.
Aye.
Weidrich.
Aye.
Item D, consider approval of office space lease with Gravitate for first floor space at 202 North State Street.
Sorry.
Nick worked on this right before he left. It's a lease with, well, we know it as Gravitate. It's actually Welch Avenue LLC. Gravitate is sort of the doing business as name for them. They have a 2-year lease and it will start. You're just finishing some landlord improvements on that site. And I don't know how close they are to being completed, but as soon as they're done, then it will start a 24-year term or a 24-month term. The monthly rent is kind of two parts, $1,000 per month base rent, and then there's $1,989.65 additional rent to reimburse the city for landlord improvements that you are making to it. So the principal is here if you wish to talk to Jeff, if you have any questions about it. But he has signed it, so it's ready for the council to approve and sign.
I'd move to approve.
Second.
Jackson.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Zamalik.
Aye.
Weidrich.
Aye.
Aaronholtz.
Aye.
Item E, consider first reading of an ordinance of Chapter 106.05 bulky rubbish to provide a 4-yard dumpster in lieu of annual fall and spring cleanup.
This is something that came to the committee as discussed for some time now. The ordinance requires a fall and spring cleanup be scheduled. What we've been finding over the years as it progresses is that trash bags are torn out, it gets to be kind of dangerous for handling. The very idea of having this automated system kind of counter to that. Dave Borland looked around and found that, I think Perry does this process. We offer a 4-yard dumpster for people to just sign up for it, and we supply it once a year. We can get it dumped in a week, they get one free dump on it. They dump beyond that would be just regular charges per dump. So they're actually getting more. The press release is in there, the rules we put out. Instead of 3 yards, they'll get 4 yards now. And the final thing is to encourage people to use those blue cards. Put a lot of material in that over time. So hoping this will help move the process along a lot better. We won't have so many people out there twice a year running the streets and trying to pick up all this stuff.
And we have enough dumpsters to do this?
We have 4 4-yard dumpsters. Dave has a lot of 2-yard dumpsters that he can also place down. So he's confident he has plenty of dumpsters. Like some people, they may not need it the whole week. It's just up to a week. But it's year round, so that should help.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about it is that year round, you don't have to put something in your garage and hold on to it until either spring or fall cleanup. And, again, utilizing those 95-gallon containers that we already have, you can get it quite a little bit in there. They said if you've got a sink that'll fit in there or a toilet or something, get it in there and it'll pick it up no problem and dump it. So, utilize the 4-yarder when you need it, and also use the ones that we have. And I just think this is going to be a real good program once we get it going and get people used to it.
And larger items will still be picked up curbside for charges. And that happens right now. Just go by there and pick it up.
It's just going to be an educational component to it for a bit.
It is.
And it'll help save the money, or save the city some money as well. The fact that this is one of the biggest areas we have workman's comp is on those cleanup seasons, correct?
It's an accident waiting to happen. So, with all just the things they handle and how it's loose, you don't know really what you're grabbing, no matter how careful you are.
Yeah, I haven't talked to everybody in town, but those I've talked to they're really high on this. I mean, I think that's a convenience for the homeowner too, rather than have to tie crap together and haul it to the street, handle it one time, and mechanically gets dumped. So, yeah, like I said, I haven't talked to everybody, but I've talked to a number of people, and they're all very, very positive about this approach.
There'll be some challenges logistically at first, to get everybody on the list. Maybe everybody will want it all at once. As it moves on, we'll just get on a list and talk to Joyce about it, try to get something set up for them. But I think once it gets in place, it's been operational, it'll go pretty smooth. But it's first reading, I know. So I don't know.
I'll make a motion that we do the first reading.
I'll second.
Sloan.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Samalik.
Aye.
Weetrick.
Aye.
I'd also like to make a motion that we skip second and third reading. Just adopt.
Second that.
So we want to do that separate, right? Yep. So Aaron Holtz did the first? Sorry,
I
that kind of threw it. You did first?
I did first, Harry.
Sorry,
did second.
kind of threw a wrench in it. Okay. Karen? Sorry. Hey, let's go with Jackson.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Weetrick. And Zamal.
Aye.
Quick question.
If you're waiving those readings, now go ahead with the motion to finally adopt.
Since you're waiving the second and third readings, when would this go into effect then? And is there not going to be a fall cleanup this year?
There's no.
As soon as they publish it.
So we can't publish.
No, there would not be a fall. It'll start with this.
It'll start with this, okay?
It'll
So
be
probably
next Thursday, not this
December.
Thursday, but next Thursday before.
That,
Would it go into effect December or November?
this goes into effect when they publish it. Will get published this
We
week.
can't get it this week, it'll have to be next it'll be next Thursdays, not this Thursday, next Thursday.
So by the end of the month?
By the end of October.
It'll be October 1st, I believe, is when it should be in the paper.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So now we can make a motion to implement it.
Need another motion.
I'll make a motion we implement it October
Fine.
15th. We need a date on it.
No.
Final reading.
Just the motion to finally adopt.
I'll make the motion finally.
Okay, Aaron Holtz,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Sloan,
Aye.
Weetrick,
Aye.
Zamalik.
Aye.
Item F, consider resolution of 28E agreement for the temporary provision of law enforcement services with the Greene County Sheriff's Office.
Hi, Thomas County Attorney is here this evening. We had the supervisors meeting Monday and Tom did a very good job at explaining what all is in this and how it works and how it doesn't work. So I asked him if he'd like to go through Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Do you all have a copy of the agreement? Okay. A lot of the language is boilerplate language required by the code, and much of it probably isn't even really relevant, but the code requires us to have the language for it to be a valid 28E. Under Article 1, it lists the parties to the agreement. There are 3 parties. The Greene County, as a county, represented by the Board of Supervisors, the Greene County Sheriff, and the City of Jefferson. Under Article 2, the purpose of the agreement is to provide law enforcement services on a temporary basis for the City of Jefferson and to ensure that the county is adequately reimbursed for the costs incurred in the provision of those services. Under Article 3, we are not creating a new separate legal entity. There will still just be those separate legal entities who are cooperating through this agreement, but we're not creating a new legal entity. Article 4, duration. This is a little different than I think most 28E agreements. At least in my experience, most 28E agreements have a provision where they automatically renew in perpetuity until the parties terminate the agreement. This agreement instead has an expiration date. It would go into effect October 1st of this year and would expire automatically on September 30th of 2021. And there is no provision for this agreement to renew. Now, the parties could come back. There is an amendment provision we'll see later in the document. If all 3 parties consent, we can amend the document and add a renewal provision, but that would require the consent of all 3 parties. As written, this would expire automatically September 30th of next year. Article 5 describes the duties that Greene County and the Greene County Sheriff's Office would assume under this agreement. The Greene County Sheriff and his deputies would cover up to 15 12-hour shifts per calendar month. So there's a cap of 15 shifts per month. Maybe one month it'll be 3 shifts, the next month 10 shifts. That could vary from month to month, but there would be a cap no more than 15 shifts per calendar month. Those shifts under Section 2 would be determined prior to the commencement of the calendar month through a mutual agreement between the sheriff and the chief of police. So under the agreement, the chief of police and the sheriff would get together and develop a work schedule for the deputies and the officers for the coming month. Once both parties agreed, that would be the work schedule with those shifts. Under Section 3, it lists the duties the sheriff's office would assume when covering those shifts. They include routine patrol services, enforcement of the code, investigation of suspected criminal activity, and specialized traffic and vehicle operation enforcement. The sheriff and his deputies also agree to participate in any judicial proceedings that would arise from arrests made while the sheriff's office is covering those shifts. Preliminary hearings, depositions, trials, things of that nature. Section 5, this is not strictly under the auspices of law enforcement services. However, in the city's law enforcement committee, there had been discussion previously about the sheriff's office assuming some administrative responsibilities, clerical tasks, secretarial work for the Jefferson Police Department. There had been discussion about a separate 28E agreement where the county would provide a half-time equivalent employee for the city to do clerical and administrative work for the Jefferson Police Department. The direction I was given from the Board of Supervisors and the city's law enforcement committee was to incorporate that language into this agreement, so we would just have one 28E agreement rather than 2. So that language was included under Section 5 of Article 5, that the county would be providing a half full-time equivalent employee for the completion of administrative and clerical tasks at the request of the chief of police or any Jefferson police officer. We'll see that there's some more provisions later on in the agreement that apply specifically to this section. The sheriff would be responsible after the completion of the month where those tasks and services were provided. By the 15th day of the following month, the sheriff would have to provide an itemized invoice to the city. And by the last day of that calendar month, the city would have to reimburse the county for those costs. In those remaining sections under Article 5, the deputies would remain employees of the county. The county would be responsible for their salaries, their compensation, benefits, as well as for that administrative assistant service. They would all remain employees of the county, and importantly, for the city's protection, any workman's comp claims would be directed to the county and not to the city because they remain county employees. The sheriff, under Section 10 of that article, would be required to keep adequate books and records, so if the city had any questions about that invoice, we would maintain records for auditing purposes. Under Article 6, it lists the duties that the city would assume under the agreement. The city would pay a monthly flat fee for the law enforcement services. That would be a function of the number of shifts covered. So there's a flat per shift rate of $1,000 per shift covered by the county sheriff. So if in 1 month they cover 15 shifts, there'd be a $15,000 fee. The next month, 3 shifts, a $3,000 fee. I'm now looking under Section 3 of Article 6. So that's subsection A, the $1,000 per shift fee. Subsection B, there would also be a flat fee of $1,750 per calendar month for those administrative services, that half-time, half full-time equivalent clerical worker that we would be providing. Under Section 4, the assumption is that if a deputy is covering a Jefferson Police Department shift and an arrest is made, all the work that ensues from that arrest would be done on county time. So the booking process, criminal investigation, that sort of thing would fall within that $1,000 per shift. And the next time the deputy's on duty, if there's still work to be done, that deputy would do that work while on duty because he's still a county deputy. It's still an arrest that he made. However, there would likely be occasions on which a deputy would be required to work outside of his normal shift. So, for instance, if there's depositions in a criminal case and he has no control over when those depositions occur and he gets a subpoena and he has to be deposed and it's not when he's on duty, the county would charge the city a rate of $60 per hour for that deputy's time anytime he's doing work arising from an arrest made while he was on duty for the city and he's working outside his normal 12-hour shift. So that would also vary then from month to month. I don't anticipate that would happen very often, but it would likely happen from time to time. Under Article 7, there's no joint property. Any property the 2 entities or the 3 entities own going into the agreement, when they leave, they take their property with them. There's no merging of property rights. Under Article 8, likewise, each entity is responsible for financing their own obligations under the agreement. Again, this is just boilerplate language. Article 9, the code requires that the 28E agreement have a designated administrator. We indicated that the sheriff would be the administrator of the agreement. I don't think that provision will have any practical consequence whatsoever. I do want to spend a little bit of time on Article 10, the termination provision. So Section 1 gives each party the right to terminate the agreement at any time effective the last day of the immediately succeeding calendar month. So whether it's December 1st or December 31st, any party can give notice, but that would not become effective until the last day of January, so that every party has proper notice and forewarning of what is coming. Under Section 3, there's a separate termination provision that gives the county or the sheriff the right to terminate the agreement immediately if certain conditions are not met. When the law enforcement committee for the city met and there were representatives from the county discussing the agreement, the county really wanted there to be benchmarks. Our hope, everybody's hope, is that the police department rebuilds and succeeds. The county does not want to take on an indefinite obligation, nor do we want to supplant the Jefferson Police Department. We want to, this is going to put enormous strain on both the PD and the SO, but we want to work together and get through this together and succeed. But the county did want certain benchmarks in place, so the county knew that the Jefferson Police Department was being rebuilt. And I think the understanding of the county was that the citizens of Jefferson are citizens of Greene County as well. And if it gets to the point where the PD isn't going to survive, the county is going to have an obligation to step in and make sure that the citizens of Jefferson have security, law enforcement services. And so the county wanted some benchmarks, some conditions, and if they weren't met, the county wanted the right to terminate the agreement. At which point, I believe the sheriff's office plan would be to start hiring deputies and start covering Jefferson generally. We don't want that to happen, but the county wanted that assurance. I met separately with the sheriff and the chief of police because the committee had trouble kind of conceptualizing what those benchmarks would be. We talked about maybe having the number of shifts the sheriff's office would cover diminish through time, and that didn't seem to work. There's just too many variables. Ultimately, what we kind of agreed upon was having those benchmarks be tied to the hiring process and have a timeline in place for hiring new officers. So under Article 10, Section 3, it lists A, B, and C, 3 conditions that would need to be met. First, the completion of job candidate interviews for at least 2 new Jefferson police officers by October 30th of this year. B, the extension of conditional job offers to at least 2 new Jefferson police officers by November 13th. The reason that would be conditional is because any officers who are granted that conditional job offer would still have to undergo certain tests to make sure they were physically fit and had the character fitness requirements necessary to become an officer. And then finally, by December 8th, the extension of formal job offers to at least 2 new Jefferson police officers. Now, if any of those conditions wasn't met, the agreement would not automatically terminate. It would merely give the county and the sheriff the right at that point to terminate the agreement. They'd still have to make that decision. It wouldn't be automatic. It would just be a trigger under which that right would be available to the county and to the sheriff. Section 4 provides a specific termination right for the city. So you'll recall that administrative services provision where the county would be providing a half full-time equivalent employee, making that employee at the city's disposal for clerical and administrative tasks. The city indicated to me through the committee that they wanted the ability to unilaterally terminate that provision. So under Section 4 of Article 10, the city can unilaterally terminate just that one provision in the agreement. such that we'd no longer be providing administrative clerical work for the city. You'd no longer have to pay for that service, and the rest of the agreement would remain intact. So the city has a special termination provision under Section 4 of Article 10. The remaining 3 provisions are just boilerplate amendments would require the consent of all 3 parties. This is the entire agreement. There's not some other document floating around out there with other provisions that aren't included here. And a severability provision, which basically means if some particular provision is found unconstitutional by a court, the rest of the document remains in force, and we just cut out, excise that unconstitutional provision. So that's a summary of the agreement. Bob is just as equipped as I am to address any questions you might have. And I don't want to infringe on his role as your attorney, but I'm happy to answer questions on behalf of the county. Yes?
So the sheriff and the chief decide the month before how many shifts will be for that month?
Correct.
Mark, this is maybe impossible to answer, but do you have a rough idea what you might be asking for from the county?
I am going to do some schedule moving. I'm going to take an officer and move him tonight's a month early from his 4-month rotation. That'll free up a day shift and allowing the other officer, the other night officer, to sign up for those shifts under overtime. Mark Wolterman has 4 weeks left of the academy, and then he'll be coming back. I figure, a couple weeks of him getting his feet back under him, he'll be up and going. One thing to understand when I do hire officers, it is a minimum of 3 months before they will be in a vehicle on their own, working a duty shift. So, there's really no way for me to say it's going to be 6. It's going to be, obviously, this isn't here to be abused. I'm not going to abuse it. This is a crutch to help us get through this. There's just too many variables to really throw a number out, or I think we probably would have came up with a number in the agreement. That's the best I can tell you, I guess.
For the administrative assistant, do you know how many hours this person will probably be using them?
As I'm sure most of you know, Sergeant Jones turned in his resignation. He'll be done October 1st. That leaves me without a sergeant, a captain. So I'm doing all those administrative duties, 100% of them. So that person can take a lot of the input of citations and a lot of the clerical stuff, pulling of files, all that kind of stuff. They can take that to take some pressure off of me, so I can get some people hired and trained. Again, that comes and goes with how busy we are.
I figured out that if they worked a whole year, it'd be about $21,000, which.
Well, and the plan obviously is to get fully staffed, and then take a look at my administrative or command staff, and try to fill from within, or do what we need to fill that sergeant and that captain position. Once those things are achieved, then that work can be spread back out amongst the 3 administrators.
Sure. And Sheriff Williams, do you have someone that's willing and available and all that for the administrative part?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. I think that's maybe nice that it's someone that already knows the police system.
Right.
That's ready to go.
Right. It's going to be a great help to get through this.
I'd move to approve it.
I'll second.
Jackson.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Weetrick.
Aye.
Zamalik.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. You guys.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Item G, consider first reading of ordinance establishing 35 mile per hour speed limit on Grimmel Road from Lincoln Way to US 30.
This was brought to me by the school and some concerned citizens as well. It's something that we took up in our committee. Grimmel Road currently from just north of the railroad tracks clear out to 220th or Highway 30 is 45 miles an hour. If you're coming from the south heading north, the north entrance in and out of the high school is over a little hill crest there. So we had some concerns with that. The school had some concerns with that. So I think it would be best just to take that 45 mile an hour zone and knock it down to 35. Then Grimmel would be 35 all the way from Lincoln Way out to Highway 30. I think it would do a lot to put safety out there.
I move to approve this.
Weetrick.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Sloan.
Aye.
Zamalik.
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
Mark, do you have plans of marking that extra right now so the high school drivers will notice a red flag sign or anything along those lines?
Maybe some stiff enforcement. Put on our dad hats and go out and, another concern we have out there that the city really has no control over, obviously, is Grimmel and 220th. It's a state highway. The school is doing their best to encourage traffic to head south back into town, but there are some cars, obviously, people in Sheridan, Scranton, they're not going to circle all the way back around. So there's quite a little traffic at that intersection, and it's again, it's a state road, so we're kind of tied up to what we can do there to help out.
I think once you pull over a couple kids, the classroom grapevine will get the word out. Now, there is someone that drives a red Dodge. That's not a kid.
We have a photograph of that vehicle on the visor, so.
Mark, that speed limit going by that intersection is still 55, isn't it?
Correct.
Is there some point here we need I don't even know what we'd do to try and get that done, to start slowing that traffic down further out?
Yeah, I mean, we're at the mercy of the DOT, obviously, so we would have to approach them, and I'm assuming they would be doing some traffic studies and different things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you know, turning lanes there at that intersection would also be very helpful.
Right, that was the other thing I was going to mention. You know, just checking on the construction of the school, when I drive out there, got to hit that highway during a busy time. Man, I had a heck of a time getting on boy, they come through there.
Right.
And I know how attentive kids are going out under that thing. That's a big concern.
Working back and forth with the DOT person now. I just got my paperwork signed and back to me yesterday to roll our stop signs out at the middle school, the new middle school.
Yeah.
So that's in effect, so the signs are out there. So I'll get back with them and see how we start that process. But I think it's a lengthy, I don't think it's something that would happen very quickly,
Yeah,
but the sooner we get it started, the better. But that is a concern.
Yeah, good.
All right, item I, update from CAT committee.
So Dave and I met yesterday, and then we talked to Mike. And, you know, I got that email from you. And So I guess the long and the short of it is, we'd like to increase the pause budget by $2,500, and what that would be earmarked for would be various things, admittedly TNR, but it could be for educational purposes. I guess we would put this line item in there as animal control, but with the thought that maybe we would try some TNR. There are grants, but in talking to people, that's a process. You gotta know how to write them, get them done, and I know that it's been expressed, you know, winter is the worst time to try and do something like that. If we could get something going in the fall. It's also from Matt and others, and Dave and I too for that matter, to try and have definitely some knowledge. Who knows how many cats are in these colonies? But to try and know roughly what that number is, and then see what that looks like in 2 years. Anecdotally, I've heard again that one of the bigger cat colonies didn't have any kittens this year, or at least not a lot. I don't know if TNR works or not, but I do know that every cat that's fixed isn't going to make new kittens. And so I think that that's at least a start.
This also wouldn't change any of the ordinances the city has. We would just allow PAWS to do their little TNR thing. They control it. We really don't have anything to do it. We would require at least quarterly updates on what's going on in their budget and how they're operating. I don't see them having any problem with that. This kind of makes it so we don't have to spend a bunch of money on redoing ordinances. And
Well, I just have a question with that, and more towards Bob. How do we handle that when we have ordinances now that animals have to be licensed? We have ordinances that they can't leave unleashed from their property. We have those in effect now, and we enforce those. I don't understand how we can have it both.
Well, I mean, when I've had these conversations with Bob before, you've said some of these are maybe unenforceable. Some of the things that...
I don't know if we discussed this particular...
No, not this thing, but in the past.
I think it's a great idea, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a great idea. I'm just saying that I'm the guy that has to go write Dave Sloan a ticket because his cat's 2 blocks over at the neighbor's house. But those 3 cats in your bush, I can't do anything about because, but the ordinance says they can't do that.
And I don't think this helps exactly what you're asking, but one thing we were going to say too, if a citizen goes through the trouble of trapping a cat on their own, ear-notched or not, that cat's not just exactly sacred, that it will go to PAWS, or, and if it's...
Right, I'm talking just from like a complaint-driven, complaint-driven thing. I'm going to be telling one resident, I can't do anything for you because those are TNR cats, and they're allowed to do that. Not according to ordinance, but they're allowed to do that. And then the next neighbor, I got to tell, you're going to get a ticket because your cat isn't part of that program and it's running at large. See what I mean? It's right. It's both directions.
We have, I mean, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's definitely still the component of any property owner that would like to have some assistance from the city, from the PD. Are we offering up traps for nuisance animal, whether it's a raccoon or a dog or a cat or?
Currently, no, we are not. Still suspended.
I feel like that's an important thing to still be able to offer. I mean, otherwise, like you're saying, a homeowner feels helpless. Whether it's a neighbor's cat or whether it's a TNR cat, if that continually is coming on their property, they shouldn't have to.
Well, I think I don't think it's a huge redo of our animal ordinances, but I think you would want to add some ordinances that if it is an ear-notched cat, then these specific ordinances do not apply to that.
I don't think...
Because then I'm working under that ordinance. When I'm telling him I have to give him a ticket, but I can't help you, I'm following
our ordinances.
So this has already happened without city umbrella. I mean, there's been, what they estimate, 50 or so cats TNR. I just wonder how many have you had in this last amount of time? A lot of, has the PD had to pick up a lot of cats or issue things?
Our cat complaints have gone way downhill since we suspended this program. People call with that issue and they're told, we can't do anything about it to help you with cats right now until we get this all figured out. They just quit calling. So your complaints are obviously way down.
Important to note that is not reflective of more or less cats, just the fact that there's people are understanding that it's pointless to call right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the thing about it is, this is really going against these huge cat colonies. The people that have, like, I think we all know that. I live, in an area where they don't have a whole bunch of cats, but they have some. This isn't necessarily targeted for this, and maybe it could be later. This is for people that are, for whatever reason, feeding dozens or tens of whatever cats. And just like with anything else, everyone has an interest in reducing those numbers. And
Sure,
so-
and I do as well. That's what I say. I'm not against TNR. I'm not against what you guys are trying to do. I just think you have to follow it up with ordinances to define the two or explain to the residents why it can happen here but not across the street, is what I'm saying.
So I don't think if we do nothing that those colonies are going to go down any. I mean, this is maybe a Band-Aid, but at least it's something that hasn't been done before. So in other words, like if we did nothing, those cat colonies would still be there, and they're still going to be there in some way. They're just not going to be reproducing anymore.
Sure.
Or hopefully. And it already happened. It just happened without any input or any money from the city. And I think that if we want to try this, I think this is a good thing. I understand.
Yep.
I see your dilemma.
And that's why I was kind of pushing it to Bob. He's the legal guy. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we should visit, because like we talked before, wanted to word it as like a pilot program. We try it for 2 years and see if there's any way that we can make it work within what we have. And then I think we need to get together with law enforcement, because I do know that when we're doing nothing, they're repopulating. Whether we feel that TNR is a cure-all for this, I do think that putting an animal that has been fixed, if vaccinations or kind of a welfare check on the animal is part of that, I'm still not great with cats running around, but if they were at least healthy animals and not reproducing, because right now they're may or may not be healthy animals and they are reproducing. So I do think that I feel like you're on the right track. I think there's just a few little hang-ups that we just got to figure out how do we deal with that. And I think with Bob and Mark, the law enforcement thing. But I think you guys are so close to having something that's doable. And like I said, like a pilot program, we try it for 2 years. Whatever you guys think that the date to try would be enough to see, are we reducing the population? Is it living up to what they say it will do? Give it long enough that we can try to collect some data, but not so long that if it's not working and we need to readjust, then we readjust.
My thoughts, though, are, winter's right around the corner. I'd like to get going this year still. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this into a motion, and I guess we'll just see where it goes, and then, maybe. What?
Does it need a motion?
Well, the motion would be to, or I don't know, do we?
We can't tonight.
But like the next one.
Yeah.
Well, it's maybe kind of a cross idea between you guys and the law enforcement committee, but can we discuss I don't- hopefully it's okay with you, Mark, discuss being able to offer citizens assistance if they need with live traps again.
That's something we could definitely discuss. We'll have.
I realize, Mark, it's not, you're a little thin right now and everything, but at least be able to, that's some of the feedback I hear is people feel kind of helpless. And not every,
And I assume you're talking for possums and raccoons?
yeah, just in general, whether, feel free to, if it's just like a nightmare component of you guys' day, or whether it's, you feel, I mean, it's a nice service and a good interaction for you guys with
Sure,
the
it's
citizens.
I think it's a service that our residents have missed greatly since it's been gone, so.
And really the issue is just kind of addressing what to do with animals once you've got them, and we can talk more about that, I think, as we have in the past. But I know folks just feel kind of helpless, and I would address some of the, if they're in the neighborhood of one of the colonies, and you have a repeat offender cat, then maybe that's one that needs to be readdressed on how it's living, where it is or where it's not, or whatever.
Right.
And that way you could say, that would help you in the aspect of, well, your neighbor's pet who is consistently over in your yard, that's something you can cite. Well, if it's consistently coming over from the colony, that's something you can just remove.
Right, and I'm, like I said, I'm not against what you guys are saying, it's great. I think what you want to do is great, and I think it will have an impact. I just think you need to follow it with clear ordinances, so there's no gray area when it comes to us enforcing it.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for the work on that. Item J, update from Zoning Review Committee, seeing if Harry and Pat, if you've had a chance to meet. We talked some months back.
Yeah, well, we've done some work, but the most recent work, Nick has talked to Planning and Zoning, and he got a variety of feedback. Some would consider, others are very concerned about it, but the bottom line is, they don't know what other communities in the state of Iowa have done with this regard, because I think they're all faced with the same thing.
Yeah.
And I did just get word from Nick this afternoon. I don't have the information with me, but he did get some feedback from the League of Cities with examples of other communities and what they're doing with some of their house front decks. And in our own research, I've already got some from Boone, and we got a little bit from Carroll. So once I've got that information from Nick, I'll share it with Pat. Pat and I'll get together. But the next step is then, I think, making sure that we've got planning and zoning informed with what we know about what other cities are doing, and then have an idea of what we would want to do here. Because one of the things I run into, over the years, the zoning has changed, so we've got quite a number of houses where the house itself is already into the setback. But I do know that Boone for one and Carroll for another, and we'll see what Nick's got. They have made provisions for that, and they look pretty workable to me. So I think this has been stalled a little bit, but I think we can make some pretty good headway on it here in the next month or two.
Sounds good.
Yeah. But yeah, the big thing is we've got to present our case to the planning and zoning group and get their buy-off on it. Yeah. Or we're still stuck, but I'm confident we'll be able to figure something out with them.
All right. Thank you for the work on that, guys. Item K is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 75 to allow for off-road utility vehicles.
Again, this came through Law Enforcement Committee. We had some residents that were interested in the UTVs being allowed on the city. We had some lengthy discussions on ATVs as far as four-wheelers or straddled seat vehicles. And through those talks, we decided to exclude those types of vehicles. But the UTV, the side-by-sides, would basically fit under all the things that we hold golf carts to at this point. Licensed driver, flag, triangle, all those different things. So Bob took a couple different things and kind of merged them together. I think he's got what we're looking for in that ordinance.
What's the reason that you don't want four-wheelers? I've had several people say they want four-wheelers in it.
Right. Thinking from a safety standpoint, from my job standpoint, younger kids are going to be more apt to have access to those four-wheelers and be driving those four-wheelers around town, Dave, I think, than a UTV.
But you had to be 16 to
Correct.
operate.
Correct.
You have to have an operator's permit.
Correct. And I think our talks through our committee, there's just opportunity there for things that would not be with the side-by-side. They're less visible, for one.
Would they be easily visible than like a motorcycle, small motorcycle?
Would they be less visible than a small motorcycle?
250.
Maybe not. Maybe not. The ability to go off-roading, basically, in town. I mean, there's a lot of different things there that we looked at that this would probably bring in.
Because like off-roading, just the other day in your police report, you had go-karts and small dirt bikes that were
on the street. Yep.
I mean, we'll never get away from that. I remember when cars went through Kelso Park.
Right.
And when there's snow on the street, you're going to see sliding.
The other day, these were little kids. You know, mom and dad were not home and they got the go-kart out and drove around the block, basically. I'm talking in other situations. Fairgrounds, the parks, all those things. I just think we're just inviting some of that stuff with the ATV. We currently have people that move snow with those vehicles that have blades on. We've had no problems with those folks. If they're going from A to B to move snow, we don't.
Well, those are a lot of the people that have talked to me, you know,
Yep.
I'd like to take it to work, but I'm not going to be able to. And I guess I don't see the reasoning. If they've got a headlight, a tail light, I think for motorcycle, you have to have a rear view mirror.
Yep.
If they
Right.
come to that, I don't see it. I guess I don't understand the problem with them being used. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I'd really like to see four-wheelers included in this.
Well, and the ordinance that we have there that came up through committee obviously is a recommended ordinance. But through our talks in law enforcement committee, it's just something we were not interested in at this time.
Is it something that you would be susceptible, or would you accept review of it in a year and see if we want to put them in, or is this just a flat, no, we ain't having it?
Oh, I think it's every ordinance we have can be reviewed at any time and changed, added to, or taken away. I think we wanted to get the UTV part of this in effect for those folks that are wanting to utilize those. Basically, it's a golf cart, which we already allow on our streets, and they operate under the same ordinance, basically. So we wanted to get that going through. I'm not saying that next year we can't look at ATVs. We did discuss it this time, and at this time, our committee did not recommend that to be added.
What's the rest of the council think? You think we should include four-wheelers?
I guess I'm almost thinking maybe we table it and then put the word out if people, you know, if there's really that groundswell of people that, you know, are interested in that.
You're gonna have 3 readings anyway, right?
Yeah. 3 readings. Oh, I see, sorry. Well, then I would cover that.
Because you're gonna have that conversation.
I don't feel strongly one way or another, to be honest.
No, I think since it is, we've got 3 readings, so maybe we can get some people on the next one that have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Right. So how this come about is there are several people that have side-by-sides, the utility vehicles, and they'd like to use it for hauling brush down to our brush pit, and some farmers that would like to be able to use their vehicles. You know, they're fairly stable, good protection. You know, that's why we were looking specifically at the side-by-side UTVs and go along with our golf carts and how we've got that set up for the requirements. We did look at the ATVs and the ones that you straddle, and just a lot of issues seem to come up with those. But yeah, if people want to make a case for it, you know, we'll have 2 more readings of this.
I guess I didn't do much checking, but are there cities that have ordinances to allow ATV four-wheelers on the road? Okay.
There's a couple in Story County.
Okay. Sure.
Just be aware, you're talking about 3 readings, but if you're going to add another type of vehicle, then we probably have to start over with the ordinance.
Right, but what we were thinking is if we did the first reading tonight and then nothing come up, we could just continue on. And then if it does, then, you know, we'd have to backtrack and start over.
Or you could continue with what you have and then start the other one later.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well, you know, I would just add that snowmobiles are no less visible than an ATV, but they're not allowed to drive through town. They have certain streets they have to follow. They have to be below the posted speed limits. Those are all just safety-minded things that we took into account when we looked at this.
Do we have to approve that or with that reading on first reading? I move to do that.
Second.
Sloan,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Weetrick,
Aye.
Samalik,
Aye.
Aaron Holtz.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna skip L for the time being, go into our reports section. Jim, you got anything?
Quick project updates. Chestnut Water Main Project, everything with the water main and services is complete. They're working on pavement patches. Hopefully within the next week or so, we should be even close on that one. Shared use path has the Central Avenue and Greenwood portions completed, and now we're waiting for the contractor to come back. Runway extension project, they got started on the dirt work. I think they've been there a little over a week now. Just getting going on that one. And then the Arch Alley, we'd probably be looking at another week or 2, we should be starting on that one.
All right, Roxanne?
No report.
Bob?
No report.
Mike?
You probably already know it, but we were awarded a CDBG grant for the corner building up here for about a little over 400,000, 435, I think. Nice article about it that that was written by Coltrane, so for the details, but it's a good start to get us towards selling that building, turning it over to Chris Steele and getting 3 new apartments in that our store. That's it.
All right, thank you. Mark, anything to add?
Just quickly,
My application process, I'm not doing backflips by any means. I'm getting our Indeed and Glassdoor that we're using, as well as the college and those things. I receive a resume, and from those resumes I send out our application and our job essential duties and all those things. The return rate of getting the resume is quick and easy to send you, but the return rate of getting the applications back is not real impressive right at this time. But I do have a couple candidates that I'm currently working on some background, and we'll get with Matt and Pat, and hopefully next week, late next week, early the week after, start some interviewing process.
Sounds good. All right, Harry?
No report.
Matt?
I was going to give a little update on recycling. Talked with the Carroll Recycling folks, and been talking with Dave Moreland a little bit. Kind of a kudos to Dave and his team and citizens of our community for taking a lot of steps to improve the recycling that's going over to the recycling center. So there's been some signage and educational things going on, and folks are really kind of paying attention and making more of an effort to be cleaner recyclers, if you will. And so that's been nice to see, just with some education and outreach, that people are responding well to that. So kudos to Dave and those folks, and for other people for caring enough to want to do it the right way. So that's it. Oh, Nick's not here, but kudos to Nick for all he's done the last several years and moving us forward with a lot of great projects and the passion that he brought. So I guess we'll miss you, Nick, officially. But we're excited to have the next chapter start there as well. So that's it.
Aaron?
Like I said, everything. Harry and I met with Nick. That was eye-opening. And Dave and I met about calves.
All right.
Already covered the new business, so I have no report.
All right. I just got a couple of things that Mark kind of already talked about. I got the stop signs out there for the crosswalks. We're working with the school to get those speed signs that have flashing lights, the speed zone. Currently they're not flashing, and one of them's actually broken and the light's tilted down. So I've taken pictures and sent that on to the school. Hopefully they get that, because it'll be a new thing down there with those stop signs that people aren't used to. Worry about people coming in from out of town and not being used to that. And we did have, with the police department, somebody decided to try to fly through Jefferson, and they were able to use their, what do you call them, spike strips? Spike strips. Got them slowed down a little bit, stopped. So thought that was nice. They're putting some of that equipment to use. Other than that, I don't have anything else. We can move on to the budget priority workshop, the priority. We're ready. I hope there's something right.
I guess we're ready to go. Does everybody have their priority sheets? Yeah. And the notes that go with it? This is the, Melanie is going to be sitting in. This is her first time to be with this. the budget off to, as we've done this for a number of years, I think this is year number 13 for this. As the routine goes, we've all turned in your priority surveys, they've been tabulated out. Typically, we put out each item. There are certainly some areas there that maybe people rank things a high priority and some rank them low, maybe for different reasons. That's one of the reasons we try to get together and talk about where we really stand on these things. So as we work through the budget process, moving forward, we know what the council priorities are. Naturally, things come up during the year, but this kind of keeps us on track. If we need to be pulled back, resume our operations after handling some sort of emergency. Also, if the council thinks that there's items on here that need to be added, or in the past, we feel like we've completed some things and we drop those off for next year. So with that, that's kind of the opening thing. I talked to Matt a little bit about it. So in the past, we've done it's kind of gone down each item. We don't necessarily have to do it this way. But it does give council a chance to comment on each one or not.
Mike, I think we need to add that, and Jim can confirm this, but we know we're going to have work out at that wastewater treatment plant. I would see that being probably a priority one, because just the timing on getting all of the applications and approvals, everything done, we need to be moving ahead with that in the very near future.
Yeah, to meet the discharge requirements, to be able to be meeting the requirements that the DNR is going to have imposed, it has to keep moving forward.
Yeah, so I believe it's a priority one from everything I know about it. And that isn't even on the list, so.
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
I think you did have one in your thing.
Yeah.
You know, it could almost, maybe be underwater, it's sewer line improvements. It's certainly a sewer improvement. So wastewater treatment plant replacement.
Mm-hmm. Upgrades.
You have a list of other comments right now? There's a list of other comments, just not on the list itself. Should go to the very last page of it or not. Very far.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is included on the comments, just not on the list.
That's not on the list, yeah. I would recommend we put it on the list, because we know it's coming. We know there's got to work to be done and some decisions made about what direction we're going to go.
Probably wouldn't be bad to put the water treatment plant there too. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to put the water treatment plant there too. I mean, it's lifespan too.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where that's at in its design life, but I think it's probably 5 years or so that we're be looking at
wastewater, but
some type of upgrade or.
It ought to be on the list. Yeah, I agree with you, Dave.
Was there any that kind of stuck out to anybody on this?
Go ahead.
I might be the number 3 on the animal shelter, not because I don't think that's important, but just that that suddenly there were leaps and bounds of progress. And so I think that dropped in sort of what I was seeing as a priority. I know it's not finished yet and there's still work to be done, but since there was just so much advancement, it wasn't, that's why it went down. So I might be the...
That's always hard to know how.
Yeah.
I mean, what means official intention versus what's made a lot of progress and
It's not important, it's just that you feel it's
I know some of the problem, it's not an excuse, but some of the problem, Don Norris's sister has stage 4 cancer. So he's like almost not leaving his house to stay quarantined in case he needs to go be with her. So that's part of what slowed that down tremendously.
Well, it is, one thing, I talked to Don, we're trying to get the land transferred. When, at what point does it get transferred to the city, where the shelter's gonna be? Because they want to bring up utilities to it this year, electric and gas, before the ground freezes. So Don's working through that. Either GCDC, they're the owners right now. but
Right.
Whoever the owner of the property is needs to apply, be the applicant for the utilities.
And I feel like I'm the one that put the number 3 on that, so. Cause
Maybe you were.
Because I felt like we've been,
Yeah.
that it's been a priority and that when they come to us, then they keep us updated very well. And I feel like we've been very responsive when they do need something, so.
Yeah, I looked at the, like the dog park, we're kind of split on that one. There's 4 number 1s and a couple of number 3s. You know, is that the same?
I think so. I think that's the same thing.
Reason.
I think that as things neared completion, and that was another philosophy I had too with the cemetery and the website, that those things seemed so easily done. Not that they aren't important, but that doesn't seem like quite the heavy lifting that a wastewater treatment plant would be, that I didn't put that as a high priority, because while it'd be nice, I don't think that it's going to take as much effort.
And highway, or entries into the city, that was, see, like a 3-2-1. Is that some of the same, is there, it's kind of in progress, but maybe that's why it was all split. It's important, but maybe the split votes were more, because it's in progress, keep it going, that was some of the comments.
Well, when you look in general, around the entries, I mean, there's a couple of hickeys out there yet. I mean, hopefully our code enforcement's going to take care of some of it, but there are specific areas. But in general, 3 entries to the city look pretty good right now. But one of them still needs attention. I'd rank that as a number 1, but not for all of the entryways. So yeah, I can see how people would 1, 2, 3, and they all make sense.
I did have a question on building maintenance. Is that where you talk about the wastewater things that may need to be upgraded? Otherwise, I mean, I feel like they do a pretty good job of maintaining the buildings,
I know the elevator in this building has been discussed, and
Sure.
the kind of fixing up the entry to this building,
Right.
Little Sugar. I don't know if those kind of things would fall into that category.
Sure.
Parking Recs building would be one, falls under that.
Okay.
How about a category facility upgrades?
Yeah, I think they do a pretty good job, it's just some of them are horribly expensive, we gotta figure out how to pay for them. On the tourism, does that really need to be there now with the chamber and the Main Street? They're kind of taking all that over. I mean, it is important, but I mean, I wonder, does it need to be on our priority list? Because I know it is on the chamber and Main Street. They've got an actual tourism committee.
Right,
so.
like maybe, I mean, we pretty consistently fund them, so, I mean, I can see what you're saying,
Because I mean, right now, who would really do tourism for the city?
It's, right.
I agree.
Special projects guy.
It's part of that. Right, I agree. It definitely falls in part of that. And I think we've shown a consistent and clear support for Main Street, and through all this transition, clearly.
I really think they're going to be able to take that and run. I think they got a pretty good system going. They got a few bugs to get worked out yet.
Yep.
I know they're doing their priority workshop tomorrow in their strategy meeting, so.
I guess the only thing would be, if it was gone and then some future city council on the way are like, I don't know, did we ever, why are we sponsoring this? It's just kind of, we're writing the check and they're doing the legwork. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can leave it on, it's not that big a deal, I just.
Sure, right, I get it. I mean, we're doing a good job.
So where does our promoting and selling and getting businesses in our buildings, and where does that fall into this matrix?
The GCDC?
Well, it should be, I think that should be the economic development piece, quite frankly. Yeah, and we do work with GCDC on that, but even in our exit interview with Nick today, that topic came up about, we're probably lacking there right now as far as a city-focused economic development / community development / get people in these buildings, so.
It seems to me we need to start
I
being
think-
a lot more aggressive with it than we have been.
Yeah.
Even if the building isn't done yet, being more aggressive, at least letting people know that we have buildings and even lots of them for sale, so.
It seems like it's been mainly GCDC, and then Main Street, at least for the downtown component, Main Street does things, they hold events and decorate the windows and make them look appealing and all that kind of stuff. So I guess, indirectly supporting how we financially supported Main Street, we've supported that. But do we need to, I mean, what would you see on the city side of it where we would do more?
Well, I would just think that, I don't even know what committee these would fall into, but I think somebody from our group needs to keep pushing those buildings and making sure that, that they're either advertised or somebody knows they're for sale. And
Mike, you meet with GCDC, right?
GCDC, Main Street, and a lot of times, all three of them in the city all come together to make something happen.
But I think Pat makes a good.
Like Seabold Wrestling.
Yeah.
Was the last. The lead team went downstairs, and the city took it from there.
I think Pat makes a good point, though. We say economic development, what's that mean? I think maybe going back and defining, let's zero down on that, yeah, it's economic development, but here's what we're talking about, and here's the focus in the economic development area, so. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because economic development is everything.
That might be something we try and nudge Main Street Chamber folks a little bit more too on, huh?
Weird place to start.
Nick was doing a lot of it indirectly, a lot.
Yeah, correct. So, that may be not something to put on Chad right away.
Right, that's something to kind of work up into.
Right.
Right. I think it's good maybe to, like Nick told us, he learned a lot of this on the job and stuff like that. There's going to be a learning curve, and I don't think we want to, pile all of his things on Chad. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's a thing where we say, hey, this is something Nick did a lot of, but maybe this could be funneled over here at least for a while.
I feel like Main Street has a lot of good tools, and they have a lot of resources at hand with a tremendous amount of other communities that they all learn from. And so maybe it's, again, just going back to them especially, particularly for the downtown area, that's something we try and encourage them to up it another gear. But it's like everything else, to be successful in a small community like this, it's going to have to be multifaceted. Several organizations and city and county to all kind of make it happen.
But I think you're right, we need to, what Matt's saying, we got to earmark some of these things, or things that are going to fall through the cracks there too.
Yep. It's a big transitional period with some key staff right now. So with the Main Street Chamber and Chad, and so it's we're gonna have to everybody's gonna have to pull a little bit and help a little bit and smooth this growth time with those guys. Transition time.
Just a question, is anybody hearing anything, requests on the quiet zone for the trains? Am I the only one? Am I the only one?
No, actually, I've heard just a handful from various people. they'd sure like it to happen, but when you explain how expensive it is, you know, and they all do realize they bought their house by those railroad tracks. It is something I think we could, you know, look into again. I don't know how feasible it is. I wouldn't say it's a big priority, but it would be somewhat of a priority. I mean, it's hard to justify spending however much money it is for eight people to be not uncomfortable.
Right, well, we had a couple that come to one of our meetings, and afterwards I went and talked to them, and they said that they moved from Sheridan, Peyton area, lived on a farm for like 60 years. Well, they rented one of these new, from Roland Construction. And they're like, can you do anything about those trains? And you know, somebody that's lived here all your life, you just either are used to it or don't notice them.
Lived in Grand Junction for 4 years. This seems like, you know, like a prairie.
Yeah, you're pretty much on the train tracks over there.
Like just a quiet little, you know.
I would be curious on that note. I was thinking it before you even said that, and now really, with that in mind, do communities that have it, I'd be interested in talking maybe with their administrator or their economic development folks or Main Street group or whoever, is that a selling point that other towns that have it, is that brought up often? Do they use that as a marketing ploy to encourage, you know, economic growth and stuff like that? I mean, is that, if we were to have it, could it be, I mean, we know people directly involved would benefit. Is it something we could use to help sell ourselves, to be a, there's an official name for it, what is it, quiet town or quiet zone town or
right,
something to that effect? Anyway, just wondering if those towns, those communities put that, if that's a feather in their hat that they are proud of and use, or maybe it's not at all ever mentioned. I don't have any idea.
Well, Ogden did this, and I remember, because Grand Junction was talking about it, it wasn't going to be financially, we were never going to do it.
right.
But this is maybe not the right thing to say out loud, but I think the mafia may take lessons from Union Pacific. So, because Ogden was raising this amount of money, and Union Pacific, well, if you got that much, how about this much more? And I mean, when Grand Junction dealt with them too, over closed waterways and stuff like that.
I know.
We did the quiet zone for Ogden.
I know Ogden did it.
Sorry.
I did the quiet zone for Ogden.
And I talked to the city administrator, well, the city clerk there, and she said they only are quiet about half the time.
They don't even follow it.
They have, each engineer has the right to blow the horn if he feels there is any safety issue that would justify it. You know, it's up to their discretion. If they see a car that they think is creeping too close, they blow the horn.
They'll blow the horn.
If somebody's walking up to the tracks, they'll blow the horn. It does not shut them off 100%, but it does.
I mean, it does shut them off, like you said, probably half the time.
And
especially through the night.
Yeah, and I am not for 100% sure, but I think you can do, you know, if you call in and say, hey, they blowed the horn, why? They have to complete like an event log type deal of why they did it. But I won't say that 100%. That would be something I'd have to check into. But I know that it is possible to get one in town if you wanted to.
They're just kind of expensive.
It depends on what you have to do.
Yeah.
As far as what Jefferson has done in the past, they've already taken one that was an at-grade crossing to an overpass, and they've closed one intersection. So I think if we can get credit for those on the scoring, then the other 4 crossings, Grimmel, Maple, Wilson, and the east one, Cedar, would be more of a the divider, the raised median with the with the existing gate arms.
That's the extra long arms.
No, it's the raised median comes down the roads and keeps traffic, so you can't go around the arms.
But you have to move some of the arms back.
Depends. Depends.
Jim, didn't you do a cost analysis a couple years back on this?
I don't think we looked specifically at the quiet zone. We were looking at the wayside horns at that time.
Yeah, we looked directly on board. There's been some work done on it.
That's what Ames has, doesn't it?
Ames had directional horns, got rid of them.
Oh, really?
Went to a quiet zone.
Oh, quiet.
Coming from the west on Grimmel, it would probably be senseless because there's an uncontrolled crossing just a quarter mile out. So, I mean...
Right, but they would stop blowing once they got to that uncontrolled crossing. They start, I think it's roughly a quarter mile before the crossing, 15 to 20 seconds depending on the speed.
I mean, I wouldn't hate that particular crossing not having a horn.
But to put something in that location, to be able to include it in the quiet zone, if you scored high enough on the others, you might be able to get away with doing nothing at one crossing, but it's a question mark. But being that it would be from basically a quarter mile west of Grimmel to a quarter mile east of Cedar would be your likely quiet zone area.
You want to put that back on?
I don't know.
I was just asking if anybody else had had any conversations about it.
What the finances of it would look like. I mean, could you say in the ballpark, you're talking closer to a $2 million or $20 million investment in?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Ogden did 4 crossings. I believe it was a $250,000 job.
Yeah, I thought we had like $450 per intersection.
It depends on what you have to do. If you have to get into moving crossing arms or extending the crossing panels or adding a 4-quadrant gate, anything like that, it gets expensive fast. It goes along a little bit with what Mr. Jackson said as far as working with the UP. It is their forces, their timeline, their cost, their whatever they want to charge for stuff is what you're dealing with there.
How much you got, give it to me.
Yeah. So in other words, they don't offer up any financial assistance.
I guess they offer you some money if you close an intersection.
And not very
but
much.
It depends on how you work it as to whether or not it's a big benefit or not. We're working with the city of Marshalltown right now on one. We've completed one in Muscatine for them on, I think that was BNSF, so we've done several.
I don't know if I would really say put it on the priority list, but I think keep it in the back of your mind. Might be something we want to strongly consider.
Or you go back in the archives and see how much it cost. Out the councils is.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we were talking about it, it was
a lot of money.
expensive, and that's why we kind of tabled it for the time being.
Well, budgets and stuff this year are going to be a little tight, so. We all got to take.
That'd probably be the kind of thing that would be included in some sort of bond issue in the future.
Right.
Is that what Ogden did?
What's that?
Did they do a bond?
Wasn't involved in how they financed it.
I think we talked about it. I didn't see anything really more other Lincoln Way improvement for old US 30, it was just kind of split across the board on that one. I think that's a lot of it. It comes back to keep it up, or we're doing okay with it. Swimming pool's the same way. At one point that was pretty high, now I think it's being taken care of. So it's on the lower end of the priority list, but it's just like, let's keep it up.
Coltrane, Rick, can't have you sleeping back there. You got any questions on these?
Is it primarily capital improvements that the priority is, or is it other things as well? I don't see animal control on there. You've spent a lot of time on animal control.
Right.
Maybe that's under code enforcement, I don't know. Is that what you folks thought about under code enforcement, was animal control?
Yeah, I did in mine, anyway. I included that with
Okay.
the rest of the issues, property cleanups.
Okay, and then police department would also, you thought about that on code enforcement? Because that's not a separate item either.
Yeah, a lot of it is the capital improvement side of it, a lot of it is. How we're gonna, especially for budget, how we're gonna focus our money on these different projects.
Wait a minute, could you clarify that question, Rick? Are you asking if, I guess?
Well, I've watched these for a while, but I'm never sure about exactly what the emphasis is. If it's bricks and mortar and streets and sidewalks, or whether it's programs like economic development and so forth. But animal control, if that was subsumed under code enforcement, then it's taken care of. I just wasn't sure.
Well, I would say it's not impossible for the police and the animal thing to maybe have their own thing. I mean, that's what we've had the most audience for lately. So, I mean, that seems to be...
I think you want to clarify what you're getting at, maybe.
Well, just that, I think we're working on it, so maybe it doesn't need to be a priority, because it's not...
I know it's important to all of us, and it's important to a lot of citizens to have a healthy police department. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It seems like almost a separate category in a way. So we don't have park and rec employment or...
Right.
You know, I mean, and then I know in many ways the PD's kind of its own thing anyway, but, and it has been maybe if it was employee retention would be, in general would be a thing to talk about.
And maybe it doesn't need to be because it's, right there and it's been being taken care of. Maybe that falls into the whole animal shelter thing, that it's not any, it's being addressed almost immediately. So, doesn't really have to be there. I get that too. I don't know which way.
And as far as animal control, that may be something that develops as we're looking at the cats, the feral cat issue, as the animal shelter comes along. We may develop into those two things alone is what sticks out in my mind, that may be something that spurs us to look at. Do we need, like if you're getting at an animal control officer or something like that, that may, but I feel like we have some things that we've got to, we're kind of waiting for that animal shelter to come along and, figure out what we're going to have, and also, what we're going to do with handling these cats. And I think that might be a byproduct of...
maybe they should be on there, because if we put everything that happened, like the noise ordinance was kind of like a firework. It became a big deal and then done.
Yeah.
So if we did, you know, we put everything that was kind of there, and then we'd have a list.
And definitely not an all-inclusive list.
500 things.
Yeah.
In the council years ago, well, we had a whole range of different things, but just lump it all under economic development.
Because I mean, I truly do think there's some things that we could drop off of here. The website.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, because police retention's been an issue for 4 years, and if it's not been on your priority list all that time, I know you add things, you take things off. Maybe law enforcement would be just one of those that are a temporary thing that you address, you figure it out for a few years, then you can drop it off your priority list. But
sure,
if there's a big groundswell for that currently,
right?
I think it'd be important to maybe even clarify it more specifically as in like employee retention, because like as Harry mentioned the last meeting, I mean, law enforcement is, numbers wise, has been a pretty high priority already. We've financially supported it quite highly, but employee retention is a whole another thing. And so you could look at that PD specifically, you could look at it citywide and focus on some general things, and maybe like all of our department heads do this and have this much training, or you know, whatever it may be, and which then would benefit the PD as well.
Sure.
I don't know. We're largely talking about employee retention, and yes, the PD is the department that's had the most issue there. So I don't know. I think you want to be as specific as possible, because a lot of this is very general.
Right.
Sure, and I was thinking also in terms of like streets, sewer, sanitation, water, recycling. Most of that stuff is covered on the priority list. I don't see library on here, I don't believe, but you got golf course, you got swimming pool.
Yeah.
I don't think you have rec center, so I was just, you know.
I mean, it's kind of hard to put everything on it.
Sure.
You just don't.
Right, and like what you're talking about, dropping stuff off, adding stuff on just for temporary purposes, and then dropping right back off.
Yeah.
Yes.
That way you wouldn't have a million things that stay on there for.
I think it does make sense to, you know, for whatever reason, the pool was an issue for a bit, and that probably could go away. I mean, we've done a lot of maintenance, and should be able to coast for a bit. So maybe other things like
Pool, website.
Yeah.
You know, I think some could drop off. And I want to say last year, and it could have been 2 years ago, but I want to say last year we did have police EMS, fire was on this.
I guess I would propose even just adding employee retention. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, we potentially maybe fixing that with the union negotiations. We don't know yet until that's all.
That's assuming that it's strictly salary related.
Well, that's what I mean. We don't know where that's going to fall yet. As of right now, PD is what we're losing the most people. I hope that stops, but man, every department's screaming for people.
Right. And are you talking about every city department or every PD? Because every PD is pretty much.
Yeah, PD, cities, they're all struggling.
I think that's important too, you know, it's like some of these things, it's like, you know, keep our head about us, it's, you know, the sky isn't falling, we're right in par with where a lot of communities are with PD and all that stuff, so definitely important, and can we do something to prioritize and rise ourselves above the help of that, but again,
Does it help if, so we're prioritizing things for the next budget, and like right now I feel like with the PD committee that we've got and things we've got going on that we're covering, you know, I feel like it's a priority right now, even though it's not on this list. Does that, I just don't know if I'm answering what your question correctly.
Well, it really wasn't a question. I was just wondering how you deal with, I mean, you've been working on animal control I
Right.
remember from about this time last year, you appointed a committee.
Yeah.
But it's not a priority on the list, so I just wondered
Oh, okay.
how you handle
Yeah, we do have a lot of things that are priority, and I feel like our animal situation that we've got going is definitely a priority, and we've got a committee right now directed just at that.
That's, may I can jump in on, one of the things about this is for those very reasons, you have maybe employee retention, the animal thing. Those come up during the year.
Mhm.
This helps bring us back. We're focused on those, but we're still,
Yeah.
can't forget these. either.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that if something comes up, we don't feel like the retention.
Yeah, in as we've in the length of the animal control issue is because it is such a complex issue is what I believe. There's so many moving parts, and it's been something that you can't really have a knee-jerk reaction to.
And you're doing it wrong. I was just curious as to how you decide what's a priority that should be on the list or not.
Oh,
You know,
sure.
it's-
Would it be too arbitrary for us to say, we have a list of 15, so if we were gonna put something on, website's gotta come off?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that would help maybe have us have a certain amount of focus then, maybe.
Because we've dropped a lot of things off over the years.
Sure.
Like, one time the overpass was the number one priority. Well, got done, so let's drop it off.
Yeah.
Railroad, for instance, the crossings, I believe that was on last year, and we decided to take it off, but we're not going to forget about it, and we haven't. But it just wasn't, at that point in time, with the budgets and stuff like that, necessarily a priority that we were going to focus on.
I mean, it's pretty hard to say one thing is an absolute priority, because there's a lot of one things that are absolute priorities.
Right.
Whether they're on this list or not, they're still a big priority. PE would be one of those examples. But these are ones that throughout the years, we've always kind of wanted to keep track of. Take care of the problem right now, and then keep business as usual.
Mm-hmm. And some of these are ones that you don't hear a lot about all the time. You know, I don't think we spend a great deal of time talking about park improvements and things like that, but we just don't want to forget about them.
Historic preservation, it always scores very low, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll write a grant or something.
Yep.
And some of those things probably score low because there's another entity on it.
Mm-hmm.
Cemetery, that's always at the bottom. I mean, that could maybe even come on. We do stuff, the committee approves and does things.
I mean, you could like almost say it doesn't score, I don't know, let's just say if it's 14 or greater, take it off. I don't know how many that be on.
Yeah, it's true.
I think, for the animal control example, I mean, that's basically a branch of law enforcement. So is that, and it's, in those situations, it's hard too, when we know that having enough staff and manpower already for who they have is difficult. I've advocated before I was even elected to figure out an animal control officer, which clearly would have to be in conjunction with the county. And I know that the Animal Shelter Committee has looked at that a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe.
The county has no interest in that whatsoever.
So until we can get them on board to add that person with, no way we can do it.
Of course, it's kind of important to remember too that our animal facility is for the city of Jefferson. It's not for the county. We sent out all kinds of letters. No other town in the county wanted to participate in it. So it's kind of just on us.
That's hard because we'll be getting, there's no doubt there's animals that will come from outside the community. So hopefully we can renegotiate or revisit that with some of the communities at some point, and I don't know.
Well, not to rehash all of this again, but I think that the feeling was that if it's hard to fill people for the PD, an animal control officer, where there would be no place to take these animals except, you know, to
Right.
be euthanized would be such a thankless job.
Right.
If we ever did hire anyone,
Right.
we'd be rehiring every 2 weeks or something.
It would, you would definitely have to wait until the animal shelter was established and you had some things going on there and work with, you know, not.
Right, and these cat colonists, or whatever, are not gonna allow someone, if they know the cat's headed to that great shelter in the sky, they're not gonna let people trap on their property. It's only going to be if they think that's not going to be what's going to happen to it.
Well, once a cat leaves the colony area, then the cat is,
Yeah.
you know, not protected anymore. Not saying that it's automatically, you know, but if it's a continual violator of someone's property rights and everything, then it gets looked at. Anyway. Anything else?
Anything else? Anybody wants to discuss?
I'm good.
Coltrane, I feel like you have a question you just don't want to ask. All right. All right.
Rick's thing. I don't trust anybody wearing a Cardinals mask anyway, so. Said that just for David, Rick.
Mr. Sloan likes the Cardinals.
Well, thank you for hanging with us, and that'll be the end of our meeting.